University. This institution holds a special place in my heart. My most memorable times and meaningful relationships were forged here at this home by the sea. It is here that I met my lifelong friends, that I started the romantic relationship with my wife, and where I developed a character that helped me to be the man I am today. My introduction to AQ began long before I even applied here to college. My best friend growing up was John Scott, who, by the way, is now my brother-in-law, so you can see he was a really good friend. John's grandmother worked on campus as a hostess at the Holly Tree Inn, along at one time with Rosa Parks. Many of you probably are unaware that Mrs. Parks lived in this area before she moved to the north. Well, this gave John and me the opportunity to come on campus. We had connections. We loved to swim and play tennis, and so we enjoyed coming on campus. And can you imagine two guys at the age of 12 or 13 walking around campus? I mean, we were big shots, you know? However, what was significant about these visits was they exposed us to campus life, and they reinforced in us our desire to go to college. We would talk about what it was going to be like when we came here and had a chance to live in a dorm, and talk about Hampton as though it was the only place in the world that we would consider to go to school. Now, Founders Day is a time to honor this university's founder, General Samuel Chapman Armstrong. It is a time to pause and reflect on Hampton's rich history and to look forward with great optimism and enthusiasm to its future. Clifton Talbot, in his book, Once Upon a Time When We Were Colored, discusses how important it is to know from whence we've come. He said it is very difficult to master the present and to make a meaningful contribution to the future unless you understand and appreciate the past. To forget our past is to forget ourselves, who we are, what we've come from, and what we have become. Hampton University has a rich and glorious past, steeped in history and intertwined with the growth of this nation. The inheritance that General Armstrong left is extraordinary, and it is important that we recognize and pay tribute to the principles and ideals on which this institution was built. As Hamptonians, we have inherited a legacy of vision. Samuel Armstrong envisioned a school for free slaves where they would learn skills for the head, the hand, and the heart. His vision was that free slaves, given an education, would become leaders in their own right, and they would have a chance for a better life. So with great vision and eager beginnings, he founded the Hampton Normal and Agricultural Institute. His vision was to build permanence. And so that vision has been sustained through many presidents, deans, professors, and students who have come to this great university. Could General Armstrong have envisioned that 143 years later, Hampton would be the pioneer in the treatment of cancer? Could he have foreseen a president like Dr. Hart, who has transformed this school from a small black college to a world-class leader in the field of higher education? Or could he have imagined that 10 presidents would visit Hampton, and that one of them would be the first African-American president, and that he would choose Hampton to be the first HBCU in which to deliver the commencement address? You have inherited the ability to overcome obstacles and hardships. Imagine for a moment what it must have been like 15 students and 2 teachers who made up the Hampton Normal and Agricultural Institute in 1868. Just a few years earlier, they were part of 5 million blacks who had endured the shackles of slavery. They had little material wealth, if any at all, and yet they came armed with the thirst for knowledge and hope for a better future for themselves and other free slaves. They came uncertain about what lay ahead. They did not have the luxuries that you have today. Their first dorm was an old hospital barracks. The males slept in tents. The teachers made $15 a month. Uniforms were made of sackcloth. But they were determined to make this place here to fulfill the promise of their unfulfilled potential. As Hamptonians, we have inherited an extraordinary legacy. As Hamptonians, we are part of a legacy of inclusiveness. Hampton created an environment for those that were not traditionally provided higher education opportunities: African Americans, Native Americans, and women. History tells us that when the Bureau of Indian Affairs only wanted to send males to the institution, General Armstrong insisted that both males and females be present. He believed that there was no wisdom in educating men and not educating their mothers and sisters and daughters. He therefore became known as the champion of education for women and Native Americans. Today, Hampton is the home of students from all over the world, a sea of diversity, representing many cultures and ethnic groups. This inclusiveness offers Hamptonians a global educational experience. Right outside these doors in Ogden Circle, there is diversity. This diversity is reflected by the presentation of the flags representing the homes of the countries of the student body. We have inherited a legacy of service. One of the founding philosophies of the school was that free slaves who received an education would go back to their communities and educate others. The teaching programs were so successful that within 12 years of its founding, Hampton graduates had taught more than 10,000 Southern black children. Our most notable example of this manifestation of this philosophy was Booker T. Washington, who graduated from Hampton and who went on to found Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University. How will you continue this legacy of service? Dr. Maya Angelou said that you can't go through life with a catcher's mitt on both hands. You have to throw back. Will you take off the catcher's mitt? We have inherited a legacy of strong character. As I mentioned before, this institution is where I developed character traits that helped me to become the man I am today. General Armstrong designed Hampton's educational programs to emphasize character, morals, and values, which are still relevant today. I strongly believe that the character development, the habits of hard work, discipline, commitment, punctuality, and maintaining a positive attitude that I received here at Hampton are the reasons that I have experienced success in my personal and professional life. Now, while I have a great appreciation and respect for the high academic achievers, I have to admit that I wasn't one of them here at Hampton. I enjoyed life. I didn't have a 4.0 GPA, but what I have learned is that with hard work and discipline, you can achieve success. I received that foundation here. I can remember having to adhere to Hampton's strict attendance and tardiness policies. While I hated those policies then, they have served me well in the workforce. I am now a stickler for punctuality, and in my 32 years of professional life, I have not missed one day of work since the illness. I can tell you my patients appreciate it. Now, I've heard Dr. Harvey say from time to time that in the real world, oftentimes you find that the A and B students working for the C students, because the C students have mastered the art of hard work, discipline, and strong character. An example of this, I entered a business relationship with a man with a handshake over 29 years. Never a contract, no legal documents, and no lawyers cringing. This is virtually unheard of today, but I knew the character of the man, a Hampton man. Will you continue this legacy of strong character? We have inherited the legacy of pride. There is a unique spirit that Hamptonians have, and until I was preparing for this event, I didn't know how to describe it or explain it. Preparing for today's enlightenment, it is a special pride that goes back to Hampton's founding father. He built Hampton University for people that he believed were dedicated to betterment. He believed in his students and their ability to overcome obstacles. He believed that they had the intellect and potential to become great leaders. But most importantly, he believed that his students deserved to be successful. This is the spirit of a Hamptonian. For General Armstrong, the seemingly impossible was indeed possible. He started with very little, but his strong belief in his vision for Hampton led him to work and pursue his dream throughout his life. His philosophy was to build for permanence. He believed that the people he was building for would sustain all that was built. As the current students of this great institution, he was building for you. You know, there is a saying that no generation can choose the age or circumstances in which it was born. But through leadership, hard work, and discipline, it can choose to make that age one of enlightenment. You have inherited a great legacy here at Hampton. How will you build on that legacy and make this an age of enlightenment? For Hampton, we can never make thee a song, except as our lives do the singing, in service that will thy great spirit prolong, and send it through centuries singing. God bless Hampton University. Thank you.